CB 52, 2024, Draft 2, an act concerning subdivision regulations, minor and major subdivisions or re-subdivision applicability for the purpose of exempting qualified data centers from filing preliminary plans of subdivision and establishing requirements for public notice and adequate public facilities. And I turn to, I know I must have a speakers list, but I'm sure I've been driving everybody crazy with not staying in order, so I apologize.
I'm bringing you the speakers list.
Okay, great. And I had an amendment, but I am no longer going to propose it because I think I know where this bill is going, so there's not a lot of point to amending it, and I would appreciate everyone's comments being extremely brief. We give you extra points for brevity today. Thank you. We will start. Well, wait a minute. I believe I saw the mayor here. Mayor Noah Waters.
Eagle Harbor.
From Eagle Harbor, yep.
Eagle. Oh, can you hear me? Yes, thank you. So good morning, Mayor Noah Waters, Town of Eagle Harbor. First, I'd like to thank the council for all the great things you've done for the Town of Eagle Harbor. Thank Councilperson Harrison for repaving our roads. Dear County Council, I am addressing you today as a concerned elected official of the Town of Eagle Harbor in District 9 to express my concern regarding proposed legislation to exempt qualified data centers from filing preliminary plans of subdivision and establishing requirements for public notice and adequate public facilities. Eagle Harbor is one of the last predominantly African-American waterfront communities remaining in the United States, and since 1964 has endured environmental impact from the neighboring Chalk Point power plant. Triggered by the power plant in 2000, Eagle Harbor became a victim of Maryland's largest man-made ecological disaster. And in 2021, a commissioner discovered that the power plant for decades was aiming toxic stormwater runoff into the town. Continued health concerns such as PCBs, which tested in a town well at 15 times the EPA standard. The majority of the Board of Town Commissioners believe that CB 052-2024 will likewise foster a lack of transparency and public oversight that will allow so-called qualified data centers to police themselves, as is the case with the power plant in Eagle Harbor. Notably, because of oral history and research conducted in Eagle Harbor, Southern Prince George's County has proudly become a part of one of the nation's newest national heritage areas, the Southern Maryland National Heritage Area. A data center would ruin the quiet serenity of the area, given the relative newness of data centers and lack of longitudinal studies over time or meta-analysis. Along with a laundry list of reported health hazards associated with noisy data centers and their extremely high electromagnetic fields, such as lack of sleep, heart disease, dizziness, and cancer. Data centers should not be exempt from preliminary oversight and public notice. The County Council should say no to CB 052-2024. Eagle Harbor, as a heritage area, offers eco-friendly and long-lasting viable solutions for bringing revenue to the county, accessible by vehicle, trail, or even the Patuxent River. Eagle Harbor is an untapped treasure of heritage tourism. I believe that addressing this issue is crucial for the well-being of our community, and invite the County Council to visit Eagle Harbor and to talk about ways that we can work together to generate significant revenue for the county. And if I can say very quickly with the utmost humility and respect, if the Congress were to tell the County Council that we're going to do something in your county and not give you oversight, you know, it's like there's a golden rule there. So I think to move forward, the transparency is always needed so we can advocate for our citizens just as you would need to advocate for Prince Georgians. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mayor Waters, for your testimony. And Mayor Waters, I'm sure I'll see you tomorrow at the charrette about Subregion 5 and 6 when you talk about the town of Eagle Harbor as well. So I look forward to seeing you there too. But thank you for being here. Next, we have Mr. Stanley Robinson. Mr. Stanley Robinson? No? Okay. Mr. Herbert Jones?
Yes.
Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Good afternoon. Chairman Ivey, distinguished members of the Prince George's County Council, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Herbert Jones. I'm the president of the Italian North Area Civic Association, representing over 500 homeowners, and I'm also a member of the South County Environmental Justice Coalition. Just a couple of points, because I think the gentleman before me highlighted all the key issues. My wife and I moved into this community, Italian, about 5 years ago. Beautiful community, etc. Love it, love everything about it. But here recently, we're feeling like we're under assault. Warehouse projects, data centers, and in our estimation, don't add any real value. We understand the county's under tremendous pressure to raise revenue. You got that. With respect to data centers, however, we think that's another story. The Italian North Area Civic Association is opposed to CB 52-2024 for a variety of reasons. One, need for legislative reform to establish more comprehensive agency review. Two, the need to consider requiring an environmental impact statement for all projects that exceed 140,000 square feet. No need to fast track of agency review. As I said earlier, need for more oversight and establishment of safeguards for homeowners, utilizing best practices. And I say that with respect to what Fairfax County is doing. I'm hoping this county will consider using that as a framework by which to look at data centers. Data centers are not a bad thing, but they have to be monitored, regulated, and make sure they're in the public interest. Finally, wanted Chairman Ivey and the members of this body to consider establishing a working group. My understanding that there was already a working group, but this is a different sort of working group made up of appropriate agencies, DPI, DOE, CDCs. But secondly, the Public Service Commission, Office of the People's Counsel. Why do I say that? The data center is going to have a significant impact on rates. Some studies have shown $30 to $40 increase in residential rates for our seniors. This could be a significant impact. And I think by having those groups in a working group, along with key community leaders, we can work with the existing framework, possibly that's being used by Fairfax County, as an overview about how to look at these data centers and making sure they're in the public interest, they're not buttressing residential communities, et cetera. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jones, for your testimony. Next, we have Patricia Monroe, Henry Wixon, and then we have Kathy Bartomia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Ivey and members of the County Council. My name is Patricia Monroe, and I am not against data centers, but I am in opposition of CB 52-2024. I understand the need for the data centers for tax revenue. However, without the appropriate rules or regulations in place prior to bringing data centers to the county, we are setting ourselves up for a disaster. And even more so when you leave the residents out of the site selection process. Unlike other industries, data centers are largely self-regulating. There is no sweeping federal or county agency to govern the siting and operation of new facilities. I read an article this morning from Malaysia, believe it or not, that before they let Google come in with a data center, they put rules, regulations in place, mainly so that their environment will not be destroyed by data centers. Data centers bring a lot of challenges: diesel emissions, the need for additional power and water resources, which the big question is, who will pay for the additional power grid and the water? Data centers are springing up all over, but they come with hidden environmental costs. yet relatively few companies are willing to talk about the risks related to the environment. Data centers come with a trade-off: either consume less water or use more electricity, or use less electricity and consume more water. The emissions of acoustic waste, otherwise known as noise pollution, in our communities is not merely an annoyance, but a source of mental and physical harm. The acute psychological effects of industrial noise pollution is well documented to include hearing loss, elevated stress hormones, hypertension, and insomnia, which are just a few of the reasons siting of these facilities will be extremely important. 300 feet from a residential home is not enough. Companies are still trying to figure out how to reduce the noise pollution, the burden on water resources, and the electrical grid. Prince George's County does not need to be the training ground for data centers. For these reasons, I am in opposition of CB 52 2024. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next, we have Mr. Henry Wixon.
Thank you very much. Members of the council, it's a pleasure to be here today and to see so many friendly faces that I've known for so many years. My name is Henry Wixon. I live at 10701 Marietta Street in Glendale, Maryland, and I'm here today to speak in opposition to CB 52 2024. I endorse the comments made by those who have preceded me in speaking this afternoon. I want to emphasize a couple of things. And the county, in its consistent rush to be the region's warehouse, needs to take advantage of the opportunity here to engage with the owners of these data centers and to do deals with them. One thing I suggest you consider is that by minimizing the ability to have oversight of these data centers, you are losing the opportunity to ensure that if a data center comes to this county, that it is a good deal for the county and it's a good deal for the county's residents. I would suggest, in addition, that it should be this council that has the ultimate say and oversight over such centers and not the planning board, because it is this council which is elected by those of us who reside here, and it is the council upon which we rely in order to ensure that our quality of life improves. And data centers may or may not accomplish that goal of improving our quality of life. But if we do not have process in place in order to evaluate the data center, its location and its impact, we will not know. And there is no reason to put ourselves, yourselves, or this county in that position. And so for those reasons, I oppose CB 52 2024, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you this afternoon.
Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Ms. Kathy, and then Weston Slaughter.
Kathy Bartolomeo from Greenbelt. Good afternoon. I oppose CB 5224 due to the following reasons. One, the mistakes made in Virginia, which we cannot make here. In Virginia, the need to take 1/2 million acres of solar energy to meet the data center's demand in Virginia. Think of all the land dedicated only for data center energy. They get to take credit for using renewables, while most of us will need to buy energy from fossil fuels. This means zero progress in our climate goals. Another analogy is the energy needs of 1,000 supermarkets, Walmarts. With green space becoming more expensive, the big buyers are now data centers, as they are driving up the cost of land and have money on hand to pay the big bucks. We are in jeopardy of losing much more farmlands. Not good for our future climate needs, such as bark, where farmlands may be highly prized in the future to grow more food for us. We need to keep the requirement for a preliminary plan of supervision so that the public may study the proposal and see if it aligns with the county's climate goals and addresses their local needs. We also need more than just a neighborhood meeting. We need guidelines for addressing the concerns of citizens. We must have protections for the communities and not leave our concerns to the decided by private and for-profit corporations. No other industry uses this huge, massive amount of energy, reminding us of the coal companies. going into communities and not remaining to help with the local revenue. Virginia's Dominion had a law passed this past year in which communities must pay 100% of the cost of their buildup. 29% of the Virginia families had to choose between paying for basic goods or electricity bill in 2023. So it was passed in 2023. Virginia now, instead of closing coal plants, are keeping them open and is planning to build more fossil fuel plants to provide energy for data centers. Amazon built data centers that were double the amount of generators with no commenting by the community. 1,000 diesel generators near where children play, and we don't know how often they test them because they're not required to tell us. Testing them from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's a lot of time allowing for these diesel generators. And let's keep in mind the water usage is huge for data centers, and now we're facing more days of drought, which is only going to become worse each year. Another issue is the diesel generators creating the PM 2.5 arsenic benzene, none of which is something we want to breathe. In Virginia, Google, well, let me get down to the end. Well, what's going to happen in 7 to 15 years? Are we still going to have these data centers? Or are they just going to be transmission grid buildups that we're going to have to pay for decades with terrible buildings as an eyesore? Who pays for the cost and who gets the benefits? Seems like the data centers get the benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Weston Slaughter. Okay. Next, then we have DCAO Angie Rogers. You signed up to speak. And Ms. Skinner, you signed up to speak.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Harrison, and committee members. So CB 52 2024 draft 2, we've had an opportunity to hear from the public. And I definitely want DCAO Angie Rogers, who's present and to my left, to elaborate on some of the comments that were raised by the public. But before I hand it off to DCAO Rogers, I just want to take an opportunity to remind people that, and I think Ms. Oriata echoed on this earlier, that there's a lot of legislation that the legislative body has put forth this legislative session. A lot of legislation that is important to our seniors, a lot of legislation that's important to maternal health. So not only with the senior property tax credit, but the Land Bank Authority legislation that I know Ms. Blagay has worked really hard on. A lot of great ideas, a lot of legislation that the administration is, wants to support. But the bottom line is, how can we pay for the senior property tax credit and the Land Bank Authority? And there's a lot of other bills that have that same question. Mr. Harrison, you've really led the council with, being Mr. Fiscal Responsibility, and we appreciate that. But CB 52 2024 is an attempt by the administration to generate some revenue to help pay for those important priorities that some of the legislators have submitted and proposed this session. So I'm going to turn it over to DCAO Rogers to help educate and inform folks about more how CB 52 2024 can generate revenue and do some great things for this county. Thank you.
Ms. Rogers, DCAO Rogers, thank you for joining us. If we could all keep our comments within the 3 minutes, because we want to make sure we're respectful to all the speakers.
Sure, no problem. And good afternoon, council members. Angie Rogers, Deputy CEO for Economic Development in the County Executive's Office. We have been supportive of moving a bill like this forward. Because really going back to, I think it was CB 1 2021, where the council took a major action in support of seeing the development of data centers in Prince George's County, and really trying to pave a quick pathway for us to see some of those projects materialize. What we had realized, because the county was looking at the prospect for data centers, both the county and the state were looking at the prospects for data centers long before I started to sit in this seat. So there has been a lot of work done to look at where there is sort of low-hanging fruit in the county in terms of parcels to put data centers on, where there's sort of a higher bar, where places that we should stay away from. So I do want to emphasize that point, because this isn't something that just popped up with CB 52 and we're trying to rush this idea through. We've been looking at how to have these kinds of projects in the county for a while. We've been in a number of county parcels in a number of competitive processes where we have been beat out shamelessly by other jurisdictions who are just able to make this happen faster than we are. What we're missing out on, each data center, at least as far as we can project for data centers in Maryland, could create about 500 short-term jobs, 30 to 50 long-term jobs, up to $5 million per year in tax benefits. But I bring to the table also this example from Virginia, and EDC just refreshed these numbers for me. Loudoun County generates roughly $1.37 billion in personal property tax. This is just the tax that it levies on computer equipment. They are also getting real property tax revenue from these deals. That's $1.37 billion on a $3 billion county budget. So it is incumbent upon us, I think, to be thoughtful about this, but I want to just make the argument that we have been very thoughtful about this. We aren't anticipating data centers to pop up on every available parcel. There are maps that show where these are likely to go. And so with that, I'll end and happy to continue to discuss this. But know that CB 52 is an important step forward for us.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony, both of you all, for your testimony. We're going to continue on with the speakers. And now we have Miss Janet Gingold, Ron Weiss, Greg Smith. And thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. I'm Janet Gingold. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Prince George's Sierra Club. Prince George's Sierra Club urges the County Council to reject CB 52 2024 because it eliminates necessary public oversight and planning processes for large facilities with potential adverse environmental impacts, especially on energy use, heat release, air quality, water use, and noise. And all of these things can adversely affect our communities. We need systems in place that will enable careful consideration of their location and design to mitigate their adverse impacts and to ensure that they do not disproportionately harm communities that are already overburdened. By removing the requirement for preliminary plan of subdivision, CB 52 eliminates the only remaining opportunity for the planning board and the public to scrutinize the proposal to ensure that it aligns with county goals, meets local needs, and includes design features to minimize adverse impacts. A neighborhood meeting held by the developer is not the same as a public hearing before the planning board. By eliminating the planning board's systematic process for reviewing data center proposals and holding a public hearing, this measure would eliminate the opportunity for oversight both by the government and by the public, leaving decisions about protecting the public interest to private profit-motivated corporations. If we must have data centers, we need to ensure that their environmental harms are mitigated, that they do not unfairly increase ratepayer costs for electricity and water, and that they do not consume county resources without paying a fair share of taxes. Our certificate of adequacy should be altered to require disclosure of projected power usage, air pollution emissions, noise levels, and heat production and water usage, along with design features that mitigate these impacts. Meaningful community engagement should listen to and address community concerns, especially for proposals for areas of our county that are already affected by air pollution from our highways, power plants, and other industries. County decision makers should have the information they need to take into consideration the potential cumulative impacts of air pollution from backup diesel generators on high-demand bad air days when power outages are most likely and cooling needs are higher. We urge the County Council to reject CB 52, 2024 and build us some guardrails. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss, for joining us today.
Thank you for listening to me. Vice Chair Harrison and members of the County Council, I'm Ron Weiss. I live in Fort Washington. And why I want you to vote no on CB 52 2024 is because it's a step away from the foundational democratic principles of the United States, principles that prioritize public participation, transparency, and accountability. By curtailing public oversight for significant development projects like data centers, CB 52 undermines community involvement and government accountability. CB 52 diminishes the role of residents in shaping decisions about major developments, sidelining community voices in favor of expedited processes. This approach contradicts the idea of a government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. By prioritizing developer and corporate agendas, 52 shifts the balance of power away from the community. It sets a dangerous precedent where profit-driven interests dominate, leaving residents with little say in their own neighborhoods. Neighboring counties like Montgomery, Fairfax, and Loudoun have demonstrated that strong public participation can coexist with economic growth. These counties emphasize early community involvement and uphold transparent, equitable legislative processes, proving that development does not have to come at the expense of democratic principles. It's a false choice between revenue and values. Where CB 52 may promise economic benefits, other counties have shown it's possible to attract high-value developments while safeguarding public participation. Prince George's County deserves better than sacrificing its principles for the gains of the data center. CB 52 represents a shift away from inclusive government toward a system where decisions are made without meaningful public input. We urge the council to uphold accountability and transparency. Please vote no on CB 52. The residents of Prince George's County deserve a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Next, we have Mr. Greg Smith. Speakers, if you could understand, we're having a little technology glitch right now. The clocks aren't working on the TVs for some reason. So if I have to interrupt you, it's not personal. It's just I have to follow the time. So it's a coincidence that we're talking about technology issues while we're talking about data centers.
Sorry, no?
Good
afternoon,
Smith.
Greg Smith, Hyattsville. I serve on the board of Sustainable Hyattsville. I urge the council to reject CB 52 and move to enact essential reforms to protect communities, public health, the environment, local businesses, and county ratepayers and taxpayers from potentially significant harm. What we heard from the county executive's office is that we should be starry-eyed by the alleged benefits and tax revenues from data centers, but not pay attention to the very real costs that other jurisdictions already are suffering, and that our residents and communities would suffer, and ratepayers would suffer if we proceed headlong in building out data centers. The question of whether, where, at what scale, and under what conditions the county allows the construction of data centers clearly is a matter of environmental, climate, social, and economic justice. Neither the state nor the county have enacted guardrails to protect the public interest. Planning Department maps and data show the ordinance allows data centers to be built by right on more than 200 properties across the county, ranging from 25 to 400 acres. Data centers already are imposing massive loads on the state's, regions, and nation's generating capacity and transmission grid. Those loads are so huge that the states and grid operators are keeping old coal-fired power plants online, and expanding gas-fired capacity. In Maryland, PJM is asking the utilities to keep 3 coal-burning power plants online just to avoid blackouts and grid collapse. In Mid-Atlantic region, the impacts have been so massive that in October, 30 U.S. senators and congresspeople wrote to PJM urging the agency to take urgent action to enhance the regional grid and protect ratepayers. The Brightsea Tech Center that's been approved by the Planning Board in Landover is an excellent case in point. Their PR says that they'll offer 820 megawatts of IT capacity. Meeting that demand 24/7 and 365 could consume between 7 and 11% of the energy capacity of all generating stations in Maryland. These are the kinds of discussions we need to have. But if that 820 megawatts doesn't include the energy required to cool the data center, the total power required could be roughly 1.4 megawatts. Where increased demand is met by burning coal or gas, data centers drive up emissions of toxic, carcinogenic, and planet-baking emissions. Hyperscale data centers will blow a massive hole in the counties and states' carbon budgets and deeply undermine our ability to build climate resilience and justice. I'm not sure how much time I have left. Do want to keep this quick. Burning gas to power the Brightsea data center could generate 1.6 to 2.5 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Million tons. If assuming that we can meet a data center's energy demands easily with renewables and batteries, it may be wishful thinking. I'll give you one really quick statement. I did a back of the envelope calculation and estimated it would take 1.5 to 2.5 million solar panels and roughly 775 to 1,300 acres of land to meet that energy demand. But it would take far more panels and far more land because the sun doesn't shine at night and it doesn't shine brightly every day, all day. So we need to be very realistic and clear-eyed about what we're doing here and take a thoughtful approach. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Thank you. Next, we have Angie McCarthy, Tanya Wingfield, Dave Arnott, and David Owens.
Good afternoon, Honorable County Council, and thank you both for the extra color on CB 52. Thank you for providing the opportunity to testify against CB 52. I'm Angie McCarthy, and I'm the Maryland Conservation Advocate for Nature Forward. I want to uplift Councilmember Olson for questioning CB 52's public versus legal impact. Thank you for keeping your constituents' voices in mind. Data centers are an integral part to our daily life, but as we've learned from Northern Virginia, allowing them by right development without community input leads to drastic energy, water, and land impacts. Data centers may be one of the most pivotal land use cases of our lifetimes. CB 52 erodes the public's last chance to meaningfully provide input on development. This is an environmental justice issue. I support what other environmental advocates have said so far before me, and I will now add 3 more reasons why Nature Forward opposes CB 52. You can find the rest of my comments and full citations in my written testimony. 1, the preliminary plans of subdivision and final plat are not equivalent. CB 52 would eliminate plans to ensure adequate public facilities are available to serve a proposed development. If this bill passes, you are condemning your residents to bearing the brunt of impact when communal resources run out. 2, data centers exacerbate health illnesses and conditions. In July 2024, Fairfax County, Virginia, approved a data center site next to a mobile home community with diesel generators just 50 feet from the property line. There was a comment on a previous bill this morning that was about preventing asthma and improving our environment. This is a similar situation. This kind of inequitable siting further puts vulnerable populations at risk, and CB 52 would deny them the opportunity to advocate for themselves. We advocate for a true commitment from Council to put in place stronger policies that are inclusive and actively seek feedback from low-income and BIPOC communities. We ask for the creation of a community-led outreach and engagement process that is fair, equitable, and efficient. 3, we don't know what the impact of data centers is on ratepayers. The Maryland OPC put out a report that found that data center energy demand could increase electricity bills by up to 24%. This is coming at a cost of living crisis when so many Marylanders are struggling to pay their bills. I understand the desire to grow the tax base for the county. In CB 52's predecessor, CB 55 2020, the fiscal note stated that these developments would have a negative fiscal impact. The county voted that it would take the risk regardless. Now the county is asking its residents to bear the weight of this risk without a voice for themselves. Thank you for your time. On behalf of Nature Forward and our 28,000 members, we recommend that the County Council vote no on CB 52 and see residents' voices as an opportunity rather than an impediment to the development process. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tanya Wingfield. Okay. After that, we have David Arnott. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you. My name is Dave Arndt. I'm the co-chair of the Maryland Legislative Coalition Climate Justice Wing, a collaborative community of over 30 grassroots organizations and professional organizations focused on legislation and advocacy on climate change to make Maryland just for all Marylanders. We oppose CB 52 because if enacted, this bill would erode the public's last chance to provide input into the development of data centers. Data centers will have significant electrical grid, financial, environmental, and quality of life impacts on Maryland. We do not oppose data centers. However, it should be done in the best possible way. We must learn by the mistakes of Virginia and maintain common sense guardrails. CB 52 removes one of those common sense guardrails. Our primary concerns, and I'll go quickly here because almost everything was covered, is on energy demand. These new data centers will bring in new transmission lines, distribution lines, and substations. We are now seeing all the activities in northern Maryland about the Piedmont line and a lot of demonstrations. These are particular transmission lines only to power data centers. Increasing electric rates. We heard a lot about electric rates. Just one more fact. In Virginia, the Dominion Power electric rates are going to double in 4 years because of data centers. Do you want that here in Maryland? Air pollution. There's a lot of big diesel generators going to cause a lot of air pollution. Noise pollution is the same issue. Water usage is another thing that was covered today. And the last thing really not covered is cumulative effects. We are just talking about one data center here. Imagine now having clusters of 10 or 20 of these and having all these effects of the diesel generators, the water usage, and those will all be made in a vacuum, those decisions made in a vacuum because there's no study of cumulative effects here. Again, the Maryland Legislative Coalition is not anti-data center. We understand the revenue benefits that counties receive from data centers. However, by eliminating all public hearing and community involvement, Prince George's County will blindly allow data center developers to be making decisions that may affect every resident of Prince George's County. While you may approve data centers in the future, keeping this guardrail in place ensures that everyone in Prince George's County understands all the ramifications. Respectfully and strongly request you to vote no on CB 52. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony. Next, we have Mr. David Owens. How are you, Mr. Owens? Good, good. I thought I recognized you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good afternoon to the council. Dave Owens from Fort Washington Forward. Fort Washington Forward opposes Bill CB 52, 2024 for the following reasons. The bill exempts qualified data centers from the requirement to complete a preliminary plan of subdivision and instead requires them only to obtain a certificate of adequacy. Certificates of adequacy do analyze the suitability of public facilities, but preliminary plans of subdivision are more comprehensive. They look at overall layout, environmental impacts, lot sizes, street design, open space, stormwater management, et cetera, et cetera. Data centers are large-scale projects. They should be given more scrutiny, not less. Number two, the bill allows development plans to be reviewed by the planning director as a minor subdivision instead of a major subdivision that must go to the planning board. Designation as a minor subdivision reduces developer responsibility to notify the public. Signposting is required at the subject site just 10 days prior to the date of the planning director's decision. For major subdivisions, it's 30 days. Additionally, developments designated as minor subdivisions do not require registered civic associations to be notified. That's in the regulations that are on the County's website. This bill gives outsized approval authority to the planning director. Planning board should be the authority in this case. They have been installed for a reason, and we should allow them to do their job. And lastly, this bill points to the requirement of a pre-application neighborhood meeting as proof that citizens are part of the process. But this is a disingenuous statement. Section 24-3303 states pre-application neighborhood meetings are informal and shall not be part of the administrative record. As currently defined, neighborhood meetings are essentially off the record, and discussions that are not part of the administrative record are difficult to admit in the legal proceedings. As everyone has said before me, data centers are an understandable option being considered by many municipalities. The scrutiny their development plans receive, however, should not be minimized. To the county executive's office and their emphasis on the need to streamline the permitting process, this reflects a broader need to reduce inefficiencies in the permitting process as a whole, not just for data centers. Most importantly, this bill removes citizens from the process, and it's disappointing it's made it this far. Fort Washington Forward opposes CB 52 and is encouraging the 35,000 residents of Fort Washington to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Owens, for your testimony. Next, we have Joanne Flynn, Alex Austin, and Bill Orleans. And I think that will conclude our public speakers. So, Ms. Joanne Flynn. If not, we can circle back around. Mr. Alex Austin, please. We can circle back around to Ms. Flynn if she's not in the room.
Good afternoon, members of the council. The Prince George's Chamber of Commerce is in favor of CB 52 2024. We've seen in regional jurisdictions that data centers have helped move the needle in corporate tax revenue and the local economy. We've examined industry verticals that have a high potential for growth. And to date, we have not seen any industry that can provide taxable revenue needed for a sustainable ecosystem like data centers. I'm noting that we're also in a current deficit. I think we all know that. And so with the data center industry and interest in Prince George's County, it's quite frankly, we have to make it easier for our business community to thrive. The data center industry is going to expand and is on the move in Maryland. With our counterparts in Frederick gaining traction, Prince George's County is in the right position to also expand and sustain data centers for the long term. I heard a lot about Loudoun County, and I want to share 20 years ago, Loudoun County made the investment. And because of that yield that data centers has provided, Loudoun County's corporate tax rate is 50%, and 42% of that comes from data center, and you heard the numbers earlier from DCL Rogers. This has allowed for better infrastructure, community investment, and programs that benefits the entire community as a whole, not just one segment. We talked about data centers, but we're not talking about the employers that also are aligned with data centers, like Google, AWS, and other large DoD contractors, which, by the way, Prince George's County, high-income earning Prince George's County residents leave to go work and live here. I'd like to see them here. And unlike our counterparts in Virginia, we have the opportunity in Prince George's County to do it in a more efficient way. Learning from the roadmap already provided, but in short, we've got to get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. And next we have Mr. Bill Orleans. Thank you, sir, for joining us.
Thank you, sir, for having me. I certainly appreciate most of the comments I've heard, and I arrived late, but on 52. I'm all for economic development, but I always ask the question, economic development in whose interest? And it seems clear to me that 52 reflects economic interest of some, notwithstanding the increased tax revenue to the county at the expense of the many. I'm reminded of a biblical verse, I'll paraphrase. What does it profit us with substantially increased tax revenues if we lose our soul? I left the county in 1963. I was 14 years old. I returned briefly to go to school here when I got out of the service in 69, left again, and did not return for another 35 years. I returned to die in this county. It's my county. I was born here. I'll die here. I've always had a sense that, unfortunately, it was a shared sense that Prince George's County is for sale. And I think over the years, actions of our legislature, county commissioners, county council, have contributed to that sense, my sense and the sense of others. You know, ultimately, whether something is good for the county or bad for the county, it's you 11 or less one now, you 10, 6 or 7 of you are present at the moment, have to make a decision. And you may be long gone when people suffer the ill effects of a yes vote on 52. I would hope that you reflect on the greater needs of the county than just increased tax revenues, which I'm for. But we should be getting it with good development as opposed to bad development, and development which serves only those property owners in the county, which I believe 52 is really just another angle for, is bad development, whether there's a good result from it or not. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You signed up to speak? Go ahead. I mean,
yeah, I signed up at the same time. I signed up for the previous one that I did online at the very same time. So I would like to speak.
Absolutely. Please speak.
Thank you.
Just make sure that you have it for the record there too as well, in
Right.
person, that you sign in.
Right.
Thank you.
So I'm Dan Smith. Step 1, vote down CB 52, the last meaningful public review of data centers. But more importantly, commit to a comprehensive, credible, transparent assessment of data center development benefits and liabilities. Please do this before proceeding with any more data center permits and construction. As we've heard, they pose significant public health, environmental cost, and are a threat to stable and affordable supplies of power and water. The burdens that electric rate increases will bring alone deserve major attention before the house is out of the barn, or the horse is out of the barn. State authorities now tell us to expect rate increases here next year of 20% due to impact of data centers. On top of this, we can expect additional increases of $600 per year in our electric bills after next year's power auction for regional utilities. That's from the Maryland People's Council. These increases do not include the rate impact of the Landover data center. That additional power demand is off the charts. This one complex will require 820 megawatts of energy. How much is that? Constellation Energy's website lays it out. There are 2 nuclear power plants there, producing a total of 1,800 megawatts, enough to power well over 1 million homes. The Landover Mall data center alone, with its 820 megawatts, will use the equivalent electricity of nearly 600,000 homes. How many in the entire county? 369. That's 62% more demand than we are using for our homes. This is massive. Where will the new power plants of this scale be built? In other jurisdictions? Will we face eminent domain battles for more power plants in South County? Please tell us. Clearly, our concerns go far beyond this bill. Maybe the coming special elections for county executive and county council will have unintended benefits. If those campaigns serve to air the issues of sprawl and development, data center development, and the influence of big money in the county, they may just turn out to be a blessing in disguise.
This public hearing has been held. Is there a motion? Oh, okay. Well, Vice Chair Harrison, sorry, I'm trying to get back up to speed.
So just real fast, I'm going to try to stick to my 3 minutes because the public has been great at sticking to their 3 minutes. But let me just say this for facts. Right now, and for those that might have missed last week's hearing, we give about $106 million in homestead property tax credit, $98 million for a senior tax credit, $100 million less in transfer and recordation in 1 year because we have a 38% drop in home sales from the previous year due to high inflation rates, and $152 million deficit. That equates to a $462 million hole without raising any new revenue that we are experiencing right now. Stormwater management is about $240 million. As you just know, we voted on stormwater management bond bill that we're going to have to borrow to make an investment to stormwater management because that's what the federal government says. Okay, so 72% of our government is funded on the backs of homeowners. 60% of the people that live in this county work for the federal government. The new administration has come in. They've already said that they're going to move these jobs out to other states. What does that mean for our housing? We're going to face some very dire times moving forward. With that being said, we have more going out than we do have coming in. Neighboring jurisdictions, since we like to talk about Virginia, according to Channel 9, who has reported this, has said that they are in jeopardy of losing their bond rating, and they've already sent notice out to those counties such as Arlington, Fairfax County, Fauquier County, the city of Alexandria for tax rate increases. Arlington has said that they're looking at raising per taxes $390 per year. Alexandria, $490. Fairfax, $524 per home. So if you look at what Loudoun County has done, 42% of their tax base, their local tax base, is provided by data centers. Everyone in this room has a cell phone and a computer that where your data goes to, that goes to Virginia. Okay? So you're talking about a $1.3 billion industry that helps manage their local government. Why is this so important? Because we, the county council, the county executive, and the entire county has just said from last year, if we have no GDP growth, we will lose our AAA bond rating, meaning we could be a single A. And that means we have more going out the door than we have going in. So I can respect what everyone is saying, but I've taken actual tour through all of Loudoun County to look at their data centers. And some of the assumptions that have been made, or even in the testimonies been made, some of that's just simply not true. I've taken my time to engage and educate and understand about a data center. Okay, I've encouraged my colleagues to do that when this bill came up in the previous session. I don't know if that was done, but I want to thank Maryland National Capital Park and Planning for hosting a field trip that invited all the elected officials to go out and actually look at these data centers. So, in closing, Madam Chair, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And we have to figure out how we're going to raise revenue, but we have to do it in harmony.
Thank you. Ms. Blagay?
Thank you so much. And I actually appreciate all of the discussion here today. Now, before I make my comments, I just want to tell my colleagues, I think we should make a very educated approach on this. Now, I'm not against data centers. I'm actually for data centers. However, careful steps is to make sure that we do not put the cart before the horse. So I want to read out some of the stats so we can actually understand what we're talking about when we talk about revenues from data centers and what we get from it. That Loudoun County, I actually took a tour myself also. It has a $6.9 billion budget. they have 180 data centers. The revenue every year, 600 million. Not that that's nothing, but that's how much they get out of 180 data centers. So what I'm saying here is that we do get revenues from data centers, and I think we should invest in making sure we have the infrastructure for data centers. But let's just face it here, one data center is not going to solve all of our financial problems. It opens the door. So what I would say here is that it's okay to take careful steps and not put the cart before the horse. I just want to make sure you all understand what that is. I understand what we heard, billions of dollars, but that is for one data center. If you go to neighboring county, and let me just note this, colleagues, what has Loudoun County recently done? They removed buy right for data centers. So it has to be reviewed by the council before it is approved because of some of the issues that everybody talk about in opposition to CB 52, because of the electricity. In fact, Loudoun County just recently put a tax increase on the computers within a data center that impacts about 5,000 surrounding small businesses. Can you imagine? If because of putting a data center, we have to now put extra taxes because of all the other infrastructure things that come after it. I just want to also note this. Let's look at the neighboring county, Prince William County. Prince William County, now, they voted against the tax hike on data centers, but their 31 data centers, how much do they get that? $100 million. Guys, we can get the revenue, but this is not going to be the rainfall of money that we're deserving. These are neighboring districts, and they gave the numbers to the Washington Post. So that is from them. $600 million for 180 data centers from Loudoun County, $100 million in Prince William for 31 data centers. We're talking about 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 3 if we dig into District 9. With District 5 and the 2 locations in District 9, we're talking about 3. It's increased revenue, but this is not a windfall of money. So we can make careful decisions here. I just want to also note this. In the last 2 years, the Virginia General Assembly has been putting up bills to control the impact of data centers when it comes to electricity and all of those things. Thank you, Mr. Austin, for coming here and mentioning Frederick County. Frederick County, their data center has a relationship with a company that is doing renewable energy so that they could do that data center. Do we know that we have that for the one that's coming? You know why we don't know? Because we don't have the infrastructure to require the type of renewable energy, all of the infrastructure that is needed. We don't have that. In multiple states, and I just want to I'm going to send you all an article that talks about this. Arizona, Illinois, Arkansas, even Georgia, they're suspending data center development. We want data centers. We don't want to come to that point. But the way not to come to that point is to put the cart before the horse. We don't have the infrastructure now. Let's do away with CB 52. Let's put in the infrastructure. I'm working on a bill now that we're going to lay that out. I want a data center in Prince George's County. I want many. But before we do that, we need the infrastructure, water usage, strain on local power grids, noise issue. All of these have been complaining, all of those. In fact, U.S. Green Building had an actual conference on this issue last month. And they talked about it. The noise issues, all of those things are complaints in Virginia. Why would you think somebody that's getting $600 million will remove by right for data centers? If not the fact that they saw the problem and they're trying now to control what has already gone ahead. Guys, I think we hold on CB 52, and we focus on building the infrastructure. We have time. We could put it in place and go forward from there. We're not saying no to data centers. We're just saying we're not going to rush them through. We're not going to rush them through, so we'll have the problems that neighbor jurisdictions is having. Remember, this is not a windfall of money. We're talking about 180 data centers bring $600 million.
Mr. Hawkins.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we hold CB 52.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hawkins to hold, second by Councilmember Burrows. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll. And those who have already spoken, I believe you've been heard. Thank you.
Thank you. I vote aye.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I will speak briefly though, because like Councilmember Blagay, I'm not opposed to data centers. I do think that what she said is we put the cart before the horse. Similarly, I believe that this is a three-step process and that should be the third step. The reason why this bill is needed though is because we won't get data centers because our processes take so long, like years, the way they are set up now. The data centers just go someplace else. And if we're okay with not getting any of that money that we're talking about, and of course the tax that you get from them depends on your own tax rates, so that we establish in this case. So I do believe that I know we need the money. And I know that although it's not a huge job creator, there are good jobs that you do not even need more than a high school degree in order to get these jobs that make around $100,000, okay? These are jobs that our community does need. The taxes are money that we do need unless everybody's okay without having our streets paved or all the other things that we need. And I believe that we will need to pass this bill eventually, but the first step would be to deal with making sure that they can get the energy that they need without it being a burden to homeowners, and to make sure we do an overlay zone that includes the public in deciding where they go, where they will go, so everyone understands. And then this bill would make the most sense, because at that point, you know where they're going, you've accepted that that will be okay, and now you can put them in without it taking, it took 5 years to get a consolidated storage put up in my district, okay? 5 years for consolidated storage, a simple project. So you know that these projects would take much, much longer, which is why this bill is needed, but not today, and I support the hold.
Ms. Plugin? Ms. Plugin?
I thought I voted already. I vote aye.
Mr. Burrows?
Aye, and briefly explaining my vote, I want to thank you, Patricia Monroe, Sharon Lawrence, Ron Weiss, Herb Jones, David Owens, and all the folks from the southern part of the county for coming today. I support the hold, and the only thing that I would add outside of what Councilman Blagay has already said, and what I know Councilman Moriata will say more eloquently than I will at this time, is that it's always interesting to me when I hear folks dangle development that's not always in the best interest of the community and tie that somehow to the senior tax credit and some of these other things that actually do help the community. If we had more confidence that these additional revenues would actually help the people that need it the most, I think we could get a lot further along. But for today, I will support the hold. I vote yes.
Mr. DeNova?
Just a couple points. One, the council previously expedited data centers through zoning. And in doing that, the council waived the requirement for detailed site plans. So the only thing the public has is the preliminary plan of subdivision, which apparently takes years and years and years. Although in state law, the legal requirement is preliminary plan of subdivision is be done within 70 days by state law. The problem seems to be that getting the building permit and the things that go along with the building permit, which are in the office of the county executive and the administrative branch, are where the holdups are. And rather than taking away the public's right to participate, we've already cleared the path for the data centers. Maybe we were looking in the wrong location. So it's important to understand how the law works in this case. And in terms of the senior tax credit, when we talk about $80, $90 million, it'd be nice if we had data to back that up. Maybe in the data center somewhere they had data that would demonstrate that that's possibly even correct, because we know it's not. I vote aye on the motion.
Vice Chair Harris?
I'm going to vote aye to hold, and just explaining my vote, I understand the temperature that's in the room, but what I will say is in Loudoun County, and the one thing that I've been consistent of is looking at the numbers. I don't manipulate the numbers, I look at the raw data. And from that, in Loudoun County, they dropped their property tax rate 5.9 cents per $100 assessed value to their homes, which is results of thousands of dollars back into the taxpaying citizens, into their pocket, and they can recirculate that dollar into their community. And so I vote aye to hold. And in conjunction with the senior tax credit, if you don't have enough revenue coming in, you're going to have to raise taxes to each get a balanced budget. So the people that you're trying to help, you're actually hurting because you're going to have to balance the budget. So does that make that tax credit null and void? And that's a real deal.
Mr. Hawkins.
Mr. Clerk, I vote aye to hold, and I wanted the mayor of Eagle Harbor to know it was very important for me to hear what you had to say.
Thank you. So as I said in committee, public process is so important. When you have an impact on our communities and, on what goes where and how that interacts with our communities, our neighborhoods, those things are important for our communities to weigh in on and to be part of the record on. You've heard from all my colleagues that, it's not necessarily about whether data centers are coming or not, but how we go through that process to determine the siting and the impacts of those. So, there's a whole host of other things out there like water use and energy, which are hugely important that we need to look at. But this is fundamentally an issue of public participation. And for that reason, I support the motion to hold. I vote aye.
Ms. Organa.
Thank you. And again, want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues, thanking all of the residents for coming out and making sure that your voice was heard today. And I have to say this, I think going back to what Councilmember Burrows said about the notion of every time we're promised, resources, the promise is that they're going to be tied to direct services. But I think as residents, we know that's not true. I mean, when they said for the harbor or MGM or gambling and vote for these things, the school system will get all of this money. Vote for this and it'll fix these issues. That's just not the case, right? And so the reality is that we do need resources, that we do need money, that we are going to face a crisis. Like Councilmember Denoga said, we've done our part to help the process. The administration needs to do their part. We have the number one complaint we get is DPI and how long it takes to get permits. We cannot legislate them to move faster. We have no control over that. Hopefully the next county executive will do a better job of holding that agency accountable so that the number one issue and complaint that we hear from businesses are actually taken care of. But our job is to make sure that the residents of Prince George's County have a voice in the process. So we found balance by making a faster process, but not erasing the voices of the community. And I could continue to support all of these initiatives to gain resources if we were guaranteed this would actually impact the community. When we get the budget out as a council, most people know, even though we're over the budget, we can't even make an amendment to it. The only time we tried to make one amendment for $250,000 for returning citizens, it was the only time the county executive actually vetoed something. So the reality is we'll pass pilots and tips for development and do all these things for data centers, but when the reality of having that money actually be felt by the community, it never happens. And so the community is tired of hearing about how this money is going to help them, but whenever they ask for resources, they never have it. And so we need to figure out how to manage the money we have before we're asking for more resources that will never impact the community and asking them to suffer by being the ones to attract and put things in their community that they don't even want. We've expanded it to residential, commercial, agriculture. And then now you don't want them to have a seat at the table. is unacceptable. And I'll vote to hold, but I also won't vote to pass this legislation when it comes back.
Ms. Watson.
Thank you. Explaining my vote, I want to also thank all the District 4 residents for coming to testify today, and I certainly appreciate your testimony, and I do hear you. Also, my colleagues have all said everything, so I don't need to kind of reiterate all of that. But I also definitely want to kind of piggyback on what Councilmember Blagay said about infrastructure and just assuring that we have the resources to support data centers, especially from members of our fire department and police departments. So I vote to hold. I vote yes to hold.
Motion carries 9-0.